Greetings, folks. This is Scott with the Game Audio Institute, and we are going to be continuing our lovely journey into audio scripting in Unity, and we're going to be looking at even more stuff. So let's just get right into it. So the last time we did this, we had a trigger script, and if you want to take a look at the original place, basically what it is we went over here, and we walked through this trigger, and it made the trigger sound. And what I decided to do, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys how to do a momentary trigger, basically, essentially a trigger that's going to play sort of like a force field trigger, like a simple force field trigger. Like you walk into a force field and then you walk out of the force field, and that's the deal. Maybe it's like a scanning device or something like that. Who knows? Lots of different possibilities. So in my case, what I ended up doing was over here in the thing, I just basically duplicated this cube object and I call it force field, and I'm putting it over here, all the way back over here, because there's a tunnel. So that's cool. My little character can kind of go through a tunnel. So that's kind of nice. And I've sort of resized it using the scale key. That's actually be done with the R key, so R for resize, I guess. And I was able to make this cube bigger and taller and stuff like that, and sort of just to fit inside the tunnel. The tunnel's got a lot of actually sort of separate objects that kind of make it up, so it's not very easy to make a trigger directly out of the tunnel per se. So that's basically what we're going to do. Simple thing, excuse me. And we're going to basically go here and put it in there. Now, the thing about it is that we want this to be invisible. We don't want this to be a visible object. So in order to do that, what we basically going to do is we can go to the object itself. When we click on the object itself, we can go to the mesh renderer and we can deactivate it, and that will make it invisible. Okay. Now, right now, I took the original script off of that, and it's actually good to have the script there. Actually, I had the little mistake here. I'm going to remove that briefly. But the thing is I'm going to add another script, and I'm going to call this Momentary Trigger, actually. So I'm going to click Add Component. Actually, if I move this up a little bit, it might be useful. Click Add Component. And if you scroll all the way bottom to bottom, you can usually go for New Script. It usually allows you to do that. It's all the way at the bottom again, so hang on one sec. There. Try it one time, because it's still not there. There you go, new script. So our new script is going to be called Momentary Trigger. Momentary Trigger. And we're going to click Create and Add. Now, what this is basically a script that is not all that completely different from our original trigger script. If we listen to our original trigger script basically had this audio source, an audio clip, and we did this on trigger enter, and it says play one shot sound. So we're going to basically copy all of this stuff, because if we go to Momentary Trigger, it probably has that, it has all that start and update stuff that we don't really need at this point. We don't need sounds playing at the beginning of the game. We don't need sounds playing every frame of the game, because we don't want granular synthesis. Anyway, so what we want to do is we want to go to trigger sound, and we want to copy that data. So we're going to basically go up here and copy all that stuff over. And that gives us a good starting point. So we'll copy that, and we'll essentially sort of paste it in the same area as this, and this will just give us a good starting point. It's always good to kind of start with something that sort of works, and then just kind of knock the walls out a little bit more, right? That kind of thing. So we want the audio source, trigger source, but we do not want the audio clip sound. Now, why we don't want that sound? Because of the fact that we're actually going to be using the audio source's own little field for the audio clip. So this is like the simplest kind of audio clip, as I demonstrated a little bit earlier. In audio source, you can see that it has the this audio clip here that I've put in here. It's just a drone sound, basically. It's just a loop of a drone. And essentially, I'm going to say loop, because I definitely want it to loop. Otherwise, it'll get to the end and stop. So that's the idea there. And it's okay to have it be 2D for now. It's not a big deal. We could make it 3D if we wanted to. And but the idea is this audio clip is already here, so I don't need to actually tell it to play an audio clip. So now if we go back over to our script over here, we can basically look over here, and instead of on trigger enter saying trigger source play one shot, Now, play one shot is going to be good for certain kinds of sounds, but for this one, we want an uninterrupted single version of the sound that will stop when we leave the trigger area. So we enter the trigger area, it's going to make a sound. When we leave the trigger area, it's going to stop. That's what the deal is. So in this case, we do not need play one shot. Play one shot is good for good things where you have like laser blasts or something that has like tails that kind of go over, because it actually spawns multiple instances of itself. We have to use the function called play. And play actually doesn't have an audio clip as the variable in the middle here. It's just play, essentially. So that's pretty much it. So we're going to basically say trigger source play. We do need to say trigger source play, and we'll have to do some stuff in the inspector for the trigger source. But other than that, we're basically pretty good. And we can copy this and then paste this, because what we want to do is when we leave the trigger area, we want it to stop. So watch this. All we have to do is change on trigger enter to on trigger exit. And that is all we have to do there. And then all we have to do is change play to, you might guessed it, stop. So that's basically that. So we save all of that and we're pretty much ready to go. All we have to do is make sure that the script itself knows which audio source to play from. Now there's another way of making this happen, but let's just do these quickie things here first, and then we can get into the more detailed sort of stuff. Okay. So in this particular case, I have my momentary trigger. I have it saying none audio source right here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to grab that force field object and I want to drag it all the way over here. Now, the other thing that I also really want to make sure about is that our box collider, which is our trigger thingy, is been set to trigger. It was set to trigger in the object that we copied, so it's pretty obvious, but it's always good to double check that kind of stuff, you know. So that being said, we are really pretty much there. And as long as console doesn't tell us that there were any errors or compilation things, you don't have any red lines here, then we're good to go, basically. We should be fine. So it's not going to play on awake, because we didn't want it to play on awake. We just want it to play when we walk in. Here we go. Now, there's a couple of different variations that we can do while we're in here. And so this is a pretty good, easy way to deal with it. And for that situation, let's just say we didn't actually have it be the trigger source. Like in other words, we want to hard code this essentially. What we want to do is tell it that we want to play from the audio source without having to do anything in the inspector to do this. So essentially we want to hard code this concept. So we can say public trigger source audio source, okay, or trigger source, I should say. And I think then in this case, we might want to bring our void start back so that we know things are being set up at the beginning. Okay, so here we go, void start. And then what we want to do is we want to basically tell Unity basically that what we're using is the audio source on this game object, okay? So in other words, if there's already a game object source, then all we have to do is just say, get this particular thing. Now, what you have to do in that case is you need to use the word, well, first of all, we have to tell it what object we're looking for. That's the trigger source. So trigger source equals, we're assigning it some value, and we want to say get component. And then in less than, greater than brackets, we need to say audio source. And then less or greater than bracket there. And then we need open paren and close paren right there afterwards. And that is all we need to say. Trigger source equals get component audio source. And at that point, once we were there and we're fine, we're good to go. So let's give this a test. See what happens. Make sure this is good. Did I do it right? Yes, looks like I did. Console is blank, so that's very helpful. So now we're going to go and play this up and see what happens. Okay, so we'll do this. We'll go back into here. See if I can, oops, sorry. I'm not here. I have to get my camera around here. Okay, I got it. And there it is. Right, and there you go. And obviously that's, it's got a pop at the beginning and a pop at the end. So it's not the most perfect thing that we've ever done. But that gives you a basic idea of how to do a momentary trigger. All right, folks, that takes us out of this particular installment of Unity Audio Scripting Shorts. Stay tuned for more of these. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, share comments, do any kind of things like that, and we'll be happy to answer them as well. And we will see you in the next one. I hope this helps you get your game audio on. Till next time, see ya.